In today's CZN video, I want to talk about Chizuru. Is she worth the pulls? Is she a must-pull character? What can she do? Is she really any good at it? All that good stuff kind of going with her. If you enjoy the CZN content, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Chizuru, to begin with, is going to be a damage dealing character. She's not going to be a sub DPS. She will be a main DPS. Her whole thing is dealing with the Bound at Dusk's inhibit. Now this says you cannot gain AP except at the start of the turn or on Ravage. So having people like Mika and having the plus AP God Epiphanies or Divine Epiphanies will not really do any too good unless for somehow they pop up in the first hand of your turn, you use it, and then you put on the Bound at Dusk. So for Chizuru, her build is going to be very interesting. She's going to have one Omega Big Hit build, and then I want to go over my fun build that I discovered on the first day that I was playing with her. For the Big Hit build, we're going to look at Karmic Flames first. Now, the Epiphanies from here that you would ideally like to have are either going to be either 1, 2, or 3, whichever one you land there. It's not really going to matter too much. We're not too worried about this card in particular. Tsukuyomi is going to be the card where you get all of your juice from. You are going to be wanting to look for Epiphany number 3 because it says you add 2 hits to the next Shadow of the Moon or Shadow of the Moon Plus, and you can stack these hits. So you want to get as many dupes of this card as you can, typically anywhere between 1 to 3. I do believe 1 to 2. Make it a little easy on yourself. When we look at Bound at Dusk, we're going to be looking for either 1 or 2 on the Epiphany. Now, I will say I like to use the Bound at Dusk 1 because, in theory, you aren't going to be using Shadow of the Moon really at all until you have that one big massive hit that should one-tap the boss or the mob that you're fighting. When we look at Oni Hunt, we are going to be wanting, in an ideal world, we want to take the second Epiphany because it gives us the extra damage to the next bind card used, which is going to be Shadow of the Moon. If we don't have that one available to us, then we want to grab the first one, which will give us plus 40%, and it will make this a 4-hit attack. That part isn't really too worried. I'm not worried about. It's the plus 40% on the next bind card because while we do want to get a lot of hits, we need those hits to be big and juicy at the same time. So Oni Hunt is going to be the other target for duping. And then Shadow of the Moon, this is where everything comes together. You know when there's that Mei Lin build where it's like for every passion card that you use, and then she just you know, like that? That's basically going to be the Shadow of the Moon. Once you use your Tsukuyomi to get a lot of the hits, and then you use your Oni Hunt to turn around and get you that increased percent, then she's going to take her Shadow of the Moon, she's going to go, and then she's going to get that big slash at the end. So that is going to be the first build. That is the crazy, you know, Omega Big Hit build. I believe it took me 3 tries to get that build going right here. I did get relatively lucky, but it's not anything that I'm like super duper try hard as far as making the builds as of right now. I want to level characters first. I'll make their builds later. But you can see here, I was able to get 3 of these Tsukuyomis with the 2 hits on the Shadow of the Moon, and then I did get 1 of these plus 60%ers on that Oni Hunt. And let me tell you, the amount of damage that build pops out is insane. It feels really nice, and it is a very fun build. Now, for the other build that I was talking about that I kind of like stumbled upon, this is more of a fun build. It's not going to get you that same level of damage, but these are the Epiphanies that I found that were very fun, and I had a good time on them. So on Karmic Flames, we're looking at Epiphany number either 3 or 5. So 3, I had a build where I duped Karmic Flames, and on both of them, they had 2 invuln as well. So the first Karmic Flames would do a lot of damage, and then it'd put the vulnerability on it. The second one would come in, take advantage of the vulnerability, and do a crap ton of damage. So Epiphany number 3 is very cool. Epiphany number 5, which is right behind me, This one is interesting because if you have multi-target enemies, I do not have to wait for my deck to cycle through for me to apply the Cursed Shackles. If I have multiple enemies, I slap it onto the first one, I knock him out, then I get this, and then I can slap it on the next one and just continue the cycling through there. This one, I do feel like, is a little bit slept on because her whole thing is single target damage. I completely get that. However, this allows her to work on multiple enemies without having to cycle through her entire deck, and this feels really fun. On the Tsukuyomi, in my opinion, I really had a lot of fun with the upgrade one. When an attack card of this unit is used, you get 2 Will-o'-the-Wisp. Now, you could get it to where you have cards that are 0 cost, and you could just stack this and then have that Will-o'-the-Wisp pop up very quickly and get to a 5 Shadow of the Moon stack very quickly. This is a very fun one, and this is the one that I chose with the build that I am talking you through. And then on the Bound at Dusk, this is where you do want to take this one right here. When the Shadow of the Moon Plus is used, decrease the cost of the next card by 1. It could be anybody's card in your hand. It decreases it by 1. The idea of this build is we do want to turn around, and as soon as we get a Shadow of the Moon Plus, and then it has that little 3 hit, we use it immediately. So we do want to take that one. And then on the Oni Hunt, now this one, it just kind of depends on what you get. If you do get the 5th one here, which is the upgrade, you get 3 Will-o'-the-Wisp at the start of the turn. Great, because we do want to be using Shadow of the Moon Plus as many times as we can. Or if you get the Oni Hunt, it creates 2 Moon Slashes for 0 cost, and they are exhausted. And then now you're being able to pop up 4 Will-o'-the-Wisp with 1 Moon Slash, and it's only going to cost you 1 because you got it on that Oni Hunt. So that one is super, super nice. And then, of course, like I said, when we get to that Shadow of the Moon Plus, as soon as we see this enter our hand, we want to immediately use it. So I want to go through a small little gameplay. This guy isn't anything super crazy. I think he's level 6. I'm still trying to level my way and work my way through it, but this is still a really fun build, and it was super fun. So the first thing that I'll do with this hand is I'm going to use the Oni Hunt so I can turn around and have those Moon Slashes available to me. Then I'm going to use the Karmic Flames so that way I can decrease the cost of one of my cards, which in theory would be the Shadow of the Moon Plus. Now that I'm playing that for a 0 cost and I have that other Epiphany that I was telling you about, she's going to now make it to where any one card is going to be at -1 cost. So now I can use Tressa's skill at a 0 cost, and then I can turn around and get some of these daggers. Now I have the Moon Slashes I can grab, and now you see I'm getting 4 of these with 1 hit, which is juicing me up, which will then give me another Shadow of the Moon Plus, which then lets me get another cost card, reduced from 1 down to 0. And then of course you can kind of see how it kind of goes back and forth and back and forth. And while it is not the craziest damage build in the world, it is super fun when I do get it to work, and honestly, that's what I'm going for with some of my builds. Now, when we talk about partners for Chizuru, her main partner is going to be Itsuku. Now, with her, she can give you some very good things from her passive. We are going to get the attack is increased by 8%, so that's going to be very good, which is going to help her with her potential that she needs. Then it says every time the assigned combatant's cards stack, increase the damage amount of attack cards by 5%. So that's going to be multiplicative there. That's going to be really good. So whenever we're stacking, we want to be stacking all the time. That's going to help us out a lot. This can stack up to 3 times. So we're going to have 15% multiplicative damage on our cards. Then it says every time one attack card used by the assigned combatant deals 3 hits, you inflict 30% fixed damage. Now 30% isn't the craziest thing in the world, but with the build that I just showed you, where we're constantly wanting to use those Shadow of the Moon pluses, get those Will-o'-the-Wisp back, and then continue using those Shadow of the Moon pluses, this is where this 30% fixed damage to the target really starts stacking up a lot. If you're using the big one-hitter, you're going to get one-time use out of this, and you're not really going to worry about it too much. And then from her actual ego skill, you'll get 200% damage to all enemies and a fierce wind. 50% damage amount to attack cards of the assigned combatant for 1 turn. So we just get an extra damage with that fierce wind, and then we can pop off with even more damage on that big hitter, or if you're doing all those multi little hits there. The one thing that I did forget to mention, with the build that I made mentions of, you will get a lot more heals from it. And to me, who is still slow on the rise of going through, it is nice to have her be a pseudo healer. Y'all know me when I run the Orlea. My Orlea is doing the damages, she's doing the shieldings, and she's doing some healings. So having Chizuru there to kind of either fill in that spot of being a pseudo healer or just being a sub damage with that healing potential feels very, very nice. Her other partner, if you don't go for the 5-star partner, I'm going to use Zatera. I will say this little 200% shield has helped me out quite a bit, but the big thing that we're looking for here is the assigned combatant's attack is increased by 16%. We are looking for as much attack as possible because on this node up here, we want attack. So if our attack is greater than 600, we get plus 5% damage to bind cards. So Shadow of the Moon. For every 40 attack above 600, add an additional 1% to the modifier, maxing out at 10. So we can get up to 15% extra damage onto our bind cards if we have 1000 attack. So you can see where we want to be kind of getting as much attack as possible from every source possible. We do have some crit chance in here, and this feels very nice. And then personally, I want to increase my unique cards and my basic cards. So I have my basic cards at the top, unique cards at the bottom. I believe, and I could be wrong, common cards are going to be cards that I buy from the shop. When I look at memory fragments, there are 2 builds that I could see being used. There's going to be either a 2-2-2 or there's going to be a 2 and a 4. And so now I don't really have good luck with the memory fragments, so y'all gonna have to excuse me. But when we take a look at these, the sets that I am looking at is going to be the Blackwing, because we get that 12% attack. That's going to be very good. The Executioner's Tool, because you just saw we already have crit chance built into our kit, so having that extra crit damage is going to be very nice. And then the last 12%er, you can go damage, you can go HP, but the last 2 setter for me, I'm going to take the Scarabs just so I can increase the damage of my basic cards. The basic card damage is not the craziest thing in the world, but when I was looking through here, I just kind of couldn't find anything to fit the bill, so I just slotted that in. You could also slot in whatever else, just random pieces that are already good. However, if I'm going to squeeze out every bit of damage that I can, I will take this at the very least. The other build that I was looking at when I was going through her memory fragments could be either a 4-piece Orb of Inhibition, because when hitting 2 times with 1 attack card, which the majority of her attack cards do, then we get plus 10% damage amount to void cards, and she's a void character, so she's going to be doing all the void damages for 1 turn, 2 times per turn. So if you want to grab the Orb of Inhibition, so there's 1 4-piece set, then you can either slot in one of the 2. You can grab the Blackwing, which to me, I would say that is the way to go, because you want to take advantage of trying to get to 1000 attack, or you can turn around and grab the Executioner's Tool, so you can have a 2-4, or you can have a 2-2, however it is that you want to do it. Me personally, I'm going to try and go for the 2-2. And then on her Manifest Ego, she has different breakpoints or thresholds, and I think her thresholds are at 2, 4, 6. So her number 1, this gives us plus 3% to our heal on Shadow of the Moon Plus and extra damage. That's great and all, cool. The first threshold though, this is where we get so much quality of life, especially for in the build that I was talking about, because when I use that Shadow of the Moon Plus, I immediately get Shadow of the Moon. I don't have to go through and draw for it, or I don't have to build up my Will of the Wisp stacks. I just get it immediately. So this helps accelerate the build that I was talking about earlier, and this helps it feel so very nice. This is not really needed if you're just going to go for the build that adds on a bunch of big hits and then just doop, and then it's done. You're not too worried about this because you're only going to use 1 Shadow of the Moon Plus. When we look at 3, it's just going to be extra damage on her ego skill. That's fine and all, but the next threshold is going to be at ego 4. This is where when you create the Shadow of the Moon cards, then you can get a Lunar Shard. A Lunar Shard is plus 10% damage amount to Chizuru's attack cards. As you can see here, if I use a Shadow of the Moon plus, I create a Shadow of the Moon, which then gives me a Lunar Shard, and then in the build that I'm main benches of, it will just immediately, almost immediately, to that 3 stacks and makes it feel very good. This one is going to be the basics, all that stuff by 3. And then her last threshold, of course, is going to be at 6. When we get the 3 stacks of the Lunar Shard, now the hit count of Shadow of the Moon Plus goes up by 1. So now we just get that extra swing in there to give me a little bit of extra damage. So her thresholds, to me, you can either stop at 2, go to 4, or go to 6. I wouldn't stop in between. That's why, like, when I was doing my pulls, I kind of got trolled, because I only initially wanted to go to 2, but I got a double on 1 multi, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta go to 4 now. And so now I am pumping out just a little bit more damage if and or when the fight goes longer. Now, Chizuru overall, like I said, she is going to be a big damage dealer. She will not be at the level of Mei Lin, who has Veronica and herself to give that passion card drawing too, so that way Mei Lin can really hard and very quickly and just destroy any single target character. But Chizuru can also do the same with a little bit more help and a little bit more steps needed. She's still a very strong character. She's a very fun character, which is what I want to stress, because that's what I'm trying to play this game for. And so she overall, to me, does not feel like a must pull. She can be a skip, she can be a spook in the standard banner, but by no means necessary is she a must pull. And that's going to be it for me with this video. Let me know down below, did you pull for Chizuru? Will you be skipping her? Do you think her kit looks fun? Do you think that she needs a little bit more room to work with as far as the other people that pair with her? Let me know your thoughts on Chizuru down below in the comment sections. If you enjoy the CZN content, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, so that way you can get more of that from me, as well as Uma Musume and other games that I may be interested in the future. Here is a massive shout out to my current channel members. Thank y'all so much for the continued support. It means the world to me. And if you'd like to become a channel member, you can do so by clicking the join button down below. And if you have Amazon Prime, please be sure to give that to one of your favorite streamers, or you can drop it on my Twitch channel and I would appreciate the blessings. Last but not least, be sure to share this video with your friends, with your family, and with your friends' family, so that way we can turn around and have a nice little video and my thoughts about Chizuru and whether you should pull her or not. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!